Like you said, I've been making software since around 1998. That experience, I was going through that in my head as John and Jen were talking about their experience, and I got to say, I agree with everything that they said, 100%. I've been down the road that they've been down, and they speak from a lot of great experience, so take notes, take that to heart. So they gave you some practical advice. It was kind of broad in helping you decide which role you want to be in, and I guess I'm here to talk about design, which means I'm talking to the hipsters. So who of you are the hipsters? One? You have one hipster? Two? Three hipsters? Okay, so what is design, right? I'm actually not going to talk just to the hipsters. I'm going to talk to all of you, because design is more than just the visual stuff that you see. How many people here think design is just visuals? How many people here think it's more than that? How many people think that maybe this room was designed? The order of these chairs was designed. All of it is part of design. Wikipedia has this rather meaty definition that design is the creation of an object by an agent designed to achieve goals in a certain environment using a set of components to satisfy a set of requirements limited by a set of constraints. This is how this relates to you. The object is the product or service that you're creating. You are that agent. The goal is to create user desire. The environment for most of you will be the internet. Some of you are making physical products. That's fine too. The components are the tools and the code that you use to craft this. The requirements are set by the market. And the constraints are usually time and money. Believe it or not, this was designed. Somebody intentionally made this website this horrible. Is that not one of the worst things you've ever seen? Can anybody in this room, well first, has anybody seen this before? A few people. The people who have not seen it before, tell me what this website does. What is it for? Why would you go here? This is a bridal salon. They sell wedding dresses and stuff for the bridal party. Anybody get that from the website? So is this effective design? No. This is Frank Lloyd Wright, a famous architect. He famously coined form follows function. That the design of a thing is a result of what the thing is supposed to do. This room is designed to shelter us from the outside and give us a space to congregate. Hence it has a ceiling and four walls and air conditioning and lighting and all those things that we need to do that. But a lot of us forget this, and we turn this to form versus function. And this manifests itself in the case of beauty versus usability. This is a battle we should not fight. We should never compromise the usability or the effectiveness of something just to make it look better. Great design creates the usability, because without it, it's just art. And if we're here to make art, there's a lot of ways to do that. But you're interested in creating businesses. Businesses need customers, and those customers are supposed to give you revenue. There is revenue in art, but I don't think that's why you're here. Art simply communicates feelings. Design is here to solve a problem. The people here who are just visual designers need to take that to heart, but you also have to think about that from the entrepreneurial point of view. What does your product or service do? And how can you design that product or service to accomplish that goal? So here's a pretty common example. Everybody has something like this in their house, right? And this is pretty good. I mean, you can see here, you can see what the current temperature is. You can twist the thing and set it to the temperature that you want. Unless, of course, you have to cool and make sure it's on the cool switch. And then if you want it warmer, you have to put it on the heat switch. So that's not very intuitive. These things came along and made it a little bit easier, programmable. Obviously, this is a step ahead, but it's nothing compared to this. How many people have used one of these? It's very elegant. It anticipates what you want to do, and then it learns from your behavioral patterns. This solves a problem. This is design. Something that we all do relatively frequently, book a flight. Now, in 2 seconds, where do you go first? Can anybody figure that out? Which input box is the one you go to type your destination? Not very simple. By contrast, this is quite easy. This solves the problem. You know why you're here. You can figure out what to do. Then they've took it a step further, and they sort your flights by agony, which is a combination of the time of day, the duration of the flight, and the cost. So this solves the problem for you. Ultimately, design is about reducing friction. It's about getting somebody to their desired goal as seamlessly as possible. So if you think about the things in your house, you think about the tools that you use every day, maybe it's your Twitter app, maybe it's your email program of choice. You use that because it's the easiest thing for you to use. Some of us have something installed on our machines for email rather than logging into a web service every time. Some of us use Google stuff because it's easier, it all integrates together. Think about all the points in which those applications and services and products that you use have reduced or eliminated friction in your life, and you'll find the reason that they're valuable to you. So since you're starting something, we need to think about branding. Now, what is a brand? Is a brand a logo? Is it a name? Is it more than that? See, a brand actually sits at the intersection of what you do and how people feel about it. A brand is not something that you communicate. A brand is something that people think about your business and your product. That's what your brand is. A long time ago, and even today, there's a lot of companies that just broadcast their message out. They just yell at you. They just tell you, this is who we are. This is what we do. And I hope that that connects with you. They hope that that hits you and you understand that, and then you use that product or service as a result. More recently, because of the internet and a lot of social tools, we have the ability for a bi-directional conversation with companies, and companies are starting to listen. And that helps to shape the way that they speak about the brand and the way that you understand that brand. But this is more powerful. It's you talking to your friends. Most of you use the products and services that you do because somebody told you about them. Because somebody personally said, hey, these shoes are awesome, you got to check them out. Or man, you got to go to that restaurant, the food was impeccable. But where's the company in all this? Now we have this communication between the entire group. You can use that to your advantage. You can use that to go out and sniff about what other brands are doing. You can figure out what your competition is doing. You can identify the market much, much easier now because of all of these tools. And in order to understand how to communicate your unique value and how you reduce friction and why your design is better, you have to understand the audience that you're marketing to. You have to understand the people who are going to be using this product or service. Because understanding what people want and designing the things to inspire them is the most powerful way to achieve your business goals. When people identify with why you're doing what you're doing, why your product is better, and you can communicate that clearly and effectively, they will buy. And they will tell their friends, and their friends will buy. How many of us have one of these things? So how do you figure out what they want? I'm going to give you a little bit of a framework. This is based on Plotchik's Wheel of Emotion. Plotchik identifies there's a handful of core emotions: joy and anticipation and trust, anger, fear, disgust, sadness, and surprise. We're all human and we've all felt all of those at one time or another. We want to focus on these: anticipation, joy, and trust. Those are the three things that you need to connect with your product or your service and its design. Amazon did a study that for every 100 milliseconds of time that passed that somebody did not connect with the product on the page, revenue would drop by 3%. You can do the math. You don't have a lot of time to capture their attention. Essentially, no amount of design can fix a lousy experience. So it doesn't matter how beautiful something is. If it's not effective, if it doesn't capture someone's imagination, they will move on. So I want to give you a quick little framework to think about when you're designing your experience, when you're designing your products, when you're designing your services. This is an emotional framework, and it's based on a handful of things. Appearance. Obviously, things have to be attractive. They have to look good. People trust things that are more attractive to them. Distinctiveness. What sets you apart from everybody else? Depth. There has to be some meaning. There has to be something beyond just a product on the shelf or another website to look at. There has to be a sense of energy. It's going somewhere. It's doing something. There's some amount of passion underlying this. It has to have humanity. It has to connect on an emotional level, on a human level. People have to understand where this connects with them personally. And there has to be a certain level of mystique. Any of you who know about Rolling Rock, if you turn the bottle around, there's this number 33. Nobody knows what it means. People connect with things like this. There's a little bit of mystery to what's happening there. The message isn't entirely clear. There's a little bit for you to think about, a little bit for you to maybe intimate on your own of what it means. So these 6 things create an emotional framework. That's the framework that you need to think about as you're working through your designs and working on what your business plan is and how you're going to connect with those customers. How you're going to explain to them what it is that you do, who you are, and why it's important. Essentially, life's too short to build something nobody wants. So think about these things and go out and make great stuff. And that's all I got.
We got time for 2 questions. Who's got the first? I know I'm in awe of the genius you just dropped. So, we got a question? Come on. Hold on. Someone who hasn't asked one. NPR man.
So when it comes down to design, one of the important things is that you actually do have to weigh some features, because if you have too many features, you can confuse the user or just like overall just overload them. How do you actually balance, you're wanting to design something that fixes a problem, but you want to throw everything in the kitchen sink at them so they can have everything, so the car included every option.
So how do you balance the desire to add features to solve a problem with the design?
That might clutter your design, but help fix a problem for maybe a subset of your users.
So there's some wisdom in, I think it was one of the execs, maybe it was at Target early on, is that you have to identify a core set of people that you're solving that problem for and mercilessly go after those people. There's a lot of people that are going to be around the satellite. They're going to ask you to add, hey, add my little thing over here, or add another feature to do this. No. Every feature that you add is going to add not only a level of complexity to the design, but it's going to dilute your message to that core audience of people that you really care about and that care about your product. But then it's also going to bring technical debt, so it's going to make it much more difficult to add more stuff in the future. When I was in the software business, we had a rule that we would let things sit on the shelf. We'd have a feature request come in, and we'd let it sit on the shelf for 3 months and see how many people requested that same feature or some variant of it. And then we'd go back every so often when we were ready to update that piece of software and look at how things had scored and look at the number of people that had requested that feature versus the number of people that were using that piece of software and weight that. And there's kind of like the 80-20 rule. So you never want to do stuff for the 20% of people. You want to focus on that 80%. So very, very mercilessly defend just the core. Don't add stuff just because somebody requested it. Get used to saying no.
All right. Final question from someone who has not asked a question yet.
So you said two of the, I guess you had three key aspects, and two of the aspects were joy and trust. And I was wondering, how do you build trust with your, I guess, your customer base, and how do you build that joy?
You build trust essentially by not violating it. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it. Essentially, when you meet somebody for the first time, you're kind of at a 50-50 point. Do I trust this person or not? Immediately when you see them, you're going to start assessing them in your mind. You know, kind of like what John was saying. You know, do they look trustworthy? And you have this based on a long history, and some of you are much younger, so maybe not a long history of interacting with other people. So trust is something that when someone comes to the website, they have to already have some understanding, already have some kind of implicit way of feeling whether or not that website is trustworthy. And a lot of that comes through the simplicity of the design, being able to communicate a message clearly. If something like that bridal shop that I put up there, would you trust that? No, because it's chaotic. But if something said very clearly, this is Yvette's Bridal, which is the name of that shop, and it showed a wedding gown, would you trust that website, right? So you have to think about not necessarily how do I build trust, but how do I not violate somebody's trust, because trust is something that's going to have to grow on its own.